Thankful for your continued support. Quick question for our viewers. Which country or city are you watching from? We love knowing how far these stories reach. Now let's dive into today's story. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead as Spencer Marks erased the whiteboard, his movements methodical after another evening ESL class. September in San Diego brought an early sunset, casting long shadows through the community college's windows. At 32, he'd grown accustomed to this routine. Teach, erase, prepare for tomorrow, repeat. Excuse me, Professor Marks? He turned to find one of his new students lingering by the front desk. Letitia King stood with perfect posture, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. She clutched her textbook close to her chest, a habit he'd noticed during class. Please call me Spencer, he said, setting down the eraser. What can I help you with? I have a question about subjunctive mood. Letitia's accent curved around the words. In Spanish, we use it differently. I want to understand better. Spencer pulled up a chair beside his desk, gesturing for her to sit. The subjunctive can be tricky. Let's work through some examples. What should have been a 15-minute grammar explanation stretched into an hour-long conversation. Letitia's questions evolved from verb tenses to American idioms, then to cultural differences between Mexico and the United States. In Mexico City, my family always eat dinner at 9, she explained, her eyes brightening as she spoke about home. Here, restaurants close so early. That must be quite an adjustment, Spencer said, noticing how she used her hands to emphasize certain words. How long have you been in San Diego? 6 months with student visa. I study business administration also. She glanced at her watch and jumped up. Oh, I'm so sorry. I keep you very late. No worries at all. This was interesting. Spencer gathered his papers, trying to sound casual. If you have more questions, I'm usually here early before class too. Over the next few weeks, their post-class discussions became an unspoken routine. Spencer found himself looking forward to these conversations more than faculty meetings or even his weekend plans. He noticed small details about Letitia, how she always wore a silver bracelet on her right wrist, the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating, her genuine laugh when he attempted Spanish pronunciations. One evening, as they discussed the differences between American and Mexican universities, Letitia sighed heavily. Everything is so different here. Sometimes I feel... She searched for the right word. Lost? No, overwhelmed. That's completely natural, Spencer assured her. Maybe we could continue this conversation over coffee? There's a great cafe just off campus. The words tumbled out before he could second-guess them. A moment of silence stretched between them. I would like that, Letitia said softly, a smile playing at the corners of her mouth. The cafe became their new meeting spot, neutral ground outside the formal teacher-student dynamic. Spencer learned about her family's restaurant in Mexico City, her dreams of opening her own business in America, her struggle with homesickness. In turn, he shared stories about growing up in California, his travels through South America, his passion for teaching. During one of their coffee meetings, Letitia's hand brushed against his as she reached for sugar. The brief contact sent an electric current through his arm. Their eyes met, and Spencer recognized the shift in their relationship. They were no longer just teacher and student discussing grammar. Would you like to have dinner with me? He asked. Not coffee, not grammar practice. An actual date? Letitia's cheeks flushed pink. What about school rules? You're not technically my student anymore. The semester ended last week. Spencer held his breath, waiting for her response. Then yes, she said, her dark eyes sparkling. I would love to have dinner with you. Their first date was at a small Mexican restaurant in Old Town. Letitia critiqued the authenticity of each dish, making Spencer laugh with her passionate opinions about proper salsa preparation. The evening flew by, and before they knew it, the restaurant was closing. Let me walk you home, Spencer offered, not ready for the night to end. Under the stars, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Outside her apartment building, Letitia turned to face him. Thank you for tonight, she said. It was perfect. Spencer leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. Instead, she met him halfway, their first kiss soft and sweet under the glow of the street lamp. From that moment, their relationship blossomed rapidly. Weekend adventures exploring San Diego turned into cozy evenings at Spencer's apartment. Leticia introduced him to telenovelas, insisting they would help his Spanish. He taught her to surf, though she preferred watching from the beach with a book. But time wasn't on their side. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Leticia grew quiet. "What's wrong?" Spencer asked, noticing her distraction. "My visa," she said, stirring the pot of soup without looking up. "It expires in 3 months. I don't want to leave, but my application for extension." She wiped her eyes quickly. "They say it's unlikely." Spencer set down his knife and turned her to face him. "We'll figure something out. I promise." That night, lying awake, he made his decision. He'd been carrying his grandmother's ring in his jacket pocket for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment. Maybe there was no perfect moment, just perfect certainty about who you wanted to spend your life with. The next day, he called his mother. "Are you sure about this, Spencer?" Diana Grant's concern crackled through the phone. "You've only known her for a few months." "I've never been more sure of anything, Mom. She's the one." "Well then," Diana sighed, but he could hear the smile in her voice. "I suppose we should start planning a wedding." The San Diego County Courthouse buzzed with activity on a crisp Friday morning. Spencer adjusted his navy tie for the 10th time, standing in the corridor while his best friend Marshall paced beside him. "You know, when I said you needed to get out more, this wasn't exactly what I had in mind," Marshall said, checking his watch again. "A courthouse wedding after 4 months of dating?" Spencer ran his hand through his freshly cut hair. "When you meet the right person, you just know. That's what concerns me." Marshall lowered his voice. "Look, as your best friend since college, I have to ask, is she pregnant?" "What? No." Spencer shook his head. "This isn't about that. Her visa situation is complicated, and we want to be together. Simple as that." Marshall opened his mouth to respond, but was interrupted by Spencer's mother Diana's arrival. She hurried down the corridor, her heels clicking against the marble floor, with Spencer's father Walter following at a more measured pace. "Oh, honey." Diana reached up to straighten Spencer's boutonniere, a single white rose. "Are you absolutely certain about this?" "There's nothing wrong with a longer engagement." Walter placed a calming hand on his wife's shoulder. "Dee, we talked about this. Spencer's a grown man." I know." Diana dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. "It's just all so sudden. We haven't even had time to plan a proper reception. Mom, we've been through this. Leticia, and I want something simple." Spencer checked his phone, no messages. "She should be here any minute." As if on cue, the courthouse doors opened. Spencer's breath caught in his throat as Leticia entered, wearing a knee-length white dress that floated around her as she walked. Her dark hair was swept up elegantly, small white flowers woven through the intricate style. Carolina Burnett, her friend from the apartment complex, walked beside her carrying a small bouquet. "Lo siento, traffic was terrible," Leticia apologized, reaching for Spencer's hand. Her fingers trembled slightly in his grip. "You look beautiful," Spencer whispered, and her answering smile lit up her entire face. "Where's your family?" Diana asked, looking around the nearly empty corridor. Surely they wouldn't want to miss their daughter's wedding? A shadow passed across Leticia's face. "They tried very hard to come, but visa problems?" She shrugged, the gesture carrying years of resignation. "My papa, he's very sick. Cannot travel. But Carolina is like sister to me now." Carolina stepped forward, her designer purse swinging on her arm. "I'm honored to be here for Leticia. We immigrants must stick together, yes?" Before anyone could respond, a court clerk emerged. "Marks and King, Judge Thompson is ready for you." The ceremony itself was brief, but meaningful. Judge Thompson, a grandfatherly man with kind eyes, took his time with the proceedings, asking them to face each other as they exchanged simple gold bands. "I, Spencer, take you, Leticia." His voice was steady as he repeated the traditional vows, squeezing her hands gently when her eyes welled with tears. "I, Leticia, take you, Spencer." Her accent wrapped around his name like a caress, making it sound new and precious. "By the power vested in me by the state of California, I now pronounce you husband and wife." Judge Thompson smiled warmly. "You may kiss the bride." Spencer cupped Leticia's face gently, pressing his lips to hers as their small audience applauded. When they parted, he noticed Carolina taking photos with her phone, while his mother wiped away tears. "Welcome to the family," Walter said, embracing Letitia warmly. "Though I insist you call me Walt, not father or sir." They celebrated with lunch at a nearby restaurant, where Diana had arranged for a small cake. Marshall raised his glass, his earlier skepticism seemingly forgotten after several glasses of wine. "To Spencer and Letitia," he toasted. "May your love story be as unique as your courtship." Later that evening, as they entered their apartment, Letitia paused in the doorway. "Carry me across threshold," she insisted with a playful smile. "Is American tradition no?" Spencer laughed and swept her into his arms, nearly bumping her head on the doorframe. "Sorry, not as smooth as the movies." "Is perfect," she whispered, kissing him as he set her down. "Everything is perfect." They settled in a married life with surprising ease. Letitia proved to be an attentive wife, filling their home with the aromas of Mexican cuisine and teaching Spencer to appreciate the nuances of different chili peppers. Their apartment in La Jolla, though small, became a warm haven of blended cultures. Spencer helped Letitia navigate the complexities of the green card application process, spending evenings sorting through paperwork and proof of their relationship. His grandmother's inheritance covered the legal fees, and he thanked her silently for the gift that was making their future possible. "Look what I find," Letitia called one evening, pulling a photo album from their closet. She curled up next to him on the couch, opening to pictures from their courthouse wedding. "Carolina sent these today." Spencer smiled at the images, noticing how young and nervous they both looked. "Hard to believe that was just 3 months ago. Time goes so fast." Letitia traced their joined hands in one photo. "You make me so happy, mi amor." He pulled her closer, breathing in the familiar scent of her jasmine shampoo. "I love you," he murmured in her hair. "Te amo también," she responded, but something in her voice made him pull back slightly. "Everything okay?" Letitia smiled quickly. "Too quickly?" "Of course. Just missing home sometimes. But you are my home now." Spencer pushed aside the fleeting moment of doubt. They had their whole lives ahead of them. What was the rush? The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt from the Pacific as Spencer graded papers on their small balcony. A year into their marriage, the routine felt comfortable. Sunday afternoons with coffee, essays, and the distant sound of waves. The sliding door squeaked open behind him. "I'm going to help Carolina with English," Letitia announced, adjusting her designer handbag. A recent purchase she'd said was on sale. "Maybe 2-3 hours?" Spencer glanced up from a particularly creative interpretation of Shakespeare. "Again? Wasn't she just here yesterday?" She struggles with past perfect tense. Letitia's fingers drummed against the bag's leather strap. "You know how hard English grammar is? I could help both of you," Spencer offered, setting down his red pen. "Teaching is kind of my thing." No. Letitia waved off the suggestion. "Carolina, she gets nervous with real teacher. Besides, we taught girl things too." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, frowning at the screen. "Ora? Espera un momento." She stepped inside, her voice dropping to a whisper. Spencer returned to his grading, but his concentration had scattered like seagulls in a storm. These mysterious calls had become more frequent, always in rapid Spanish, always ending abruptly when he entered the room. The door slid open again. "That was Mama," Letitia explained without being asked. "She worries too much. I go now, okay?" "Your mom?" Spencer set his papers aside. "How is she? We haven't talked to her in weeks." "Oh, same always. Missing me. Asking when we visit Mexico." Letitia leaned down to kiss his cheek, her perfume lingering after she pulled away. "Don't work too hard, mi amor." Spencer watched her descend the stairs to the parking lot, her heels clicking against concrete. She passed their neighbor Mrs. Chun, who was tending to her potted herbs. "Your wife is becoming quite the social butterfly," Mrs. Chun commented, watering her basil. "She and that Carolina are thick as thieves lately." "They have a lot in common," Spencer replied, though the words felt hollow. Mrs. Chun moved on to her mint plants. "That Carolina, she has many friends. Different cars picking her up at all hours. Very popular girl. Spencer's red pen tapped against the railing, creating an irregular rhythm. The changes in Letitia had been gradual, like erosion on a coastline. First, it was new clothes, expensive brands she insisted were bargains from outlet malls. Then came the late nights with Carolina, the hush phone calls, the vague explanations. The next evening, Spencer was washing dishes when voices drifted up from the parking lot. He recognized Letitia's laugh, followed by Carolina's distinct accent. Drying his hands, he moved to the window. In the dim light of the street lamp, he saw them talking to a man he didn't recognize. The stranger handed something to Carolina, an envelope, before climbing into a sleek black car. Spencer. Letitia's voice made him jump. She stood in the doorway, keys jingling in her hand. Why you standing dark? Just finished the dishes? He gestured vaguely toward the sink. Who was that with Carolina? Her cousin, visiting from Los Angeles. Letitia hung her purse on the hook by the door. He helps her with her business. What business is that exactly? Import, export, something like that. She shrugged off her jacket. I don't understand all details. Want to watch novella with me? New episode tonight. Spencer allowed himself to be led to the couch, but his mind kept returning to the scene in the parking lot. Carolina had never mentioned a cousin, or a business for that matter. Later that night, he woke to find Letitia's side of the bed empty. The clock read 2:17 a.m. Following the sound of murmuring, he padded to the kitchen. Letitia stood by the window, phone pressed to her ear. No puede ser. Es muy arriesgado. Her whispered Spanish was too quick for his basic comprehension. She tensed when the floorboard creaked under his foot. Tengo que irme, she said quickly into the phone. Besos, mama. Your mom calls pretty late, Spencer observed, leaning against the doorframe. Time difference, Letitia explained, slipping the phone into her robe pocket. In Mexico City is earlier. It's later in Mexico City, Spencer corrected gently. By 2 hours. Letitia's expression flickered like a candle in wind. Right. I'm so tired, I forget. She brushed past him toward the bedroom. Coming back to bed? Spencer remained in the kitchen, staring at the city lights twinkling through the window. The time difference excuse was just one thread, but pulling it had revealed a larger snag in the fabric of their life together. The next morning, he found a crumpled receipt in Letitia's jacket while doing laundry. A cafe downtown he'd never heard of, dated 2 days ago, when she'd said she was helping Carolina with English. Small inconsistencies began to pile up like autumn leaves. Unexplained absences, contradictory stories, mysterious text messages that made her rush out at odd hours. Going to help Carolina again? He asked one evening as she applied lipstick by the door. See, she needs... Letitia paused, catching his reflection in the mirror. Why you ask like that? Like what? Like you don't believe me. She turned, her dark eyes challenging. You think I lie to you? Spencer held her gaze. Should I? The question hung between them like smoke. Letitia's phone buzzed, breaking the tension. I have to go. She grabbed her keys. Don't wait up. The door closed behind her with a decisive click. Spencer moved to the window, watching as she climbed into Carolina's white Mercedes. As they drove away, he noticed another car, the same black one from before, pulling out to follow them. That night, sleep eluded him. Every creak of the building, every distant car horn made him wonder where his wife really was, what she was really doing. The woman who returned home after midnight, smelling of unfamiliar cigarette smoke, felt like a stranger wearing his wife's face. The foundations of his marriage, he realized, were shifting like sand beneath his feet. He just couldn't tell if they were being eroded by his own paranoia or by something darker lurking beneath Letitia's beautiful smile. The community college's aging HVAC system finally gave up during the peak of a Tuesday afternoon. As maintenance crews scrambled to restore power, Spencer's department head dismissed all evening classes. The unexpected free time felt like a gift after weeks of growing tension at home. Rain pelted his windshield as he navigated through La Jolla's winding streets. The weather had forced most people indoors, leaving the usually busy sidewalks empty. Spencer pulled into his usual parking spot, noticing Carolina's white Mercedes was missing for once. The walk to his ground floor apartment took him past their bedroom window. The soft yellow light spilled through the gap in the curtains, accompanied by Letitia's voice. Spencer paused, raindrops soaking through his jacket. Something in her tone made him stop. It wasn't her usual phone voice, practiced and cheerful. This was rapid, urgent Spanish. No puedo salir esta noche. Letitia's voice carried clearly through the window. Spencer sospecha algo. Spencer's basic Spanish caught enough to know she was saying she couldn't go out tonight, that he suspected something. He stood motionless, rain running down his neck. Mama, yeti lo dije, she continued, frustration evident. Solo mi case con el por la green card. Dos meses más y ser libre. The words hit him like physical blows. His mind translated slowly, unwillingly. Mom, I already told you. I only married him for the green card. 2 more months, and I'll be free. The rain seemed to freeze on his skin. 3 years of memories flashed through his mind. Their first coffee date, the courthouse wedding, countless nights watching telenovelas on their worn couch. All of it, every smile, every kiss, every whispered "Te amo," had been carefully crafted fiction. See, Ricardo espera en Mexico, Letitia's voice continued, oblivious to her audience. Una vez que tenga la ciudadanía. Spencer backed away from the window, his shoes squishing in the wet grass. Who was Ricardo? The question joined the tornado of others spinning through his mind. He found himself walking past their apartment complex, past the coffee shop where they'd had their first date, past the Mexican restaurant where he'd first tried to impress her with his terrible Spanish pronunciation. The rain soaked through his clothes, but he barely noticed. His phone buzzed. Letitia's face lit up the screen. He watched it ring until it stopped, then immediately start again. 3 missed calls later, a text appeared. Where are you? Class canceled? Dinner getting cold? The casual domesticity of the message made his stomach turn. How many other messages like this had been part of her performance? How many dinners had she cooked while plotting with this Ricardo person? Spencer found himself at Windansea Beach, watching waves crash against the rocks. The rain had driven away even the most dedicated surfers, leaving him alone with the roaring ocean and his thoughts. His phone buzzed again, Marshall this time. Hey man, want to grab a beer? Sarah's out of town, and I'm bored. Spencer stared at the message for a long moment before responding. Can you pick me up at Windansea? I'll explain when you get here. 20 minutes later, Marshall's Jeep pulled into the parking lot. One look at Spencer's face and his usual grin disappeared. Jesus, you're soaked. What happened? Spencer climbed into the passenger seat, water dripping onto the upholstery. My marriage is a lie. What? Letitia. Her name tasted bitter now. She married me for a green card. I just heard her admit it on the phone. Marshall's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Are you sure? Maybe you misunderstood. She's waiting for citizenship, so someone named Ricardo can come from Mexico. Spencer laughed, a hollow sound. Pretty hard to misunderstand that. Shit. Marshall pulled out of the parking lot. You're not going back there tonight. You can crash at my place. Spencer's phone buzzed again. Another text from Letitia. Mi amor, you worry me. Please come home. Turn it off, Marshall advised. You need time to think clearly. At Marshall's apartment, Spencer shed his wet clothes for borrowed sweats. They sat on the balcony, watching the rain while nursing beers. Remember when I said the wedding seemed rushed? Marshall finally broke the silence. Don't. Spencer took a long drink. I don't need I told you so right now. That's not. Look, what are you going to do? I don't know. Spencer stared into his beer. Confront her? Call immigration? Pretend I never heard it and live a lie. You need evidence, Marshall said after a moment. If you're going to do anything official, you need more than an overheard phone call. Spencer's phone lit up again. 7 missed calls, 12 texts. The latest one read, Please, I'm so worried. I'll call police if I don't hear from you. She's good, he muttered. Really good at this. Text her, Marshall suggested. Say you're helping me with something. Buy yourself some time. Spencer typed out a quick message with Marshall. Lost track of time. Don't wait up. The response was immediate. Oh, thank God. Was so worried. Love you, Red Heart. Each word felt like another twist of the knife. Spencer turned off his phone. I know a guy. Marshall said slowly. Vincent Guthrie. He's a PI who specializes in these kinds of cases. Want me to give him a call? Spencer nodded, too drained to speak. The rain continued to fall, washing away the last remnants of his perfect marriage, leaving only cold reality in its place. That night, lying on Marshall's couch, Spencer replayed every moment of his relationship with Letitia, looking for signs he'd missed. The mysterious phone calls, the time spent with Carolina, the designer clothes she couldn't explain, all of it formed a pattern he'd been too in love to see. Tomorrow, he'd have to decide what to do with this knowledge. Tonight, he let the rain mask his tears as he mourned the death of a love that had never really existed. Vincent Guthrie's office occupied a small suite above a coffee shop in downtown San Diego. The scent of espresso wafted up through the floorboards as Spencer sat across from the private investigator, watching him review the notes from their conversation. Marriage fraud, Vincent said, tapping his pen against his legal pad. More common than you'd think. The problem is proving it. Marshall leaned against the wall behind Spencer, arms crossed. That's why we came to you. Vincent nodded, his weathered face thoughtful. I'll need to set up surveillance, track financial records, monitor communications. It's not cheap. Money's not an issue, Spencer said, pulling out his checkbook. Just find out everything. Before we start, Vincent leaned forward, his gray eyes sharp. Are you sure you want to know? Sometimes the truth is worse than suspicion. Spencer's hand tightened around his pen. I need to know all of it. The investigation unfolded over the next 3 weeks. Spencer maintained a facade of normalcy at home, eating Letitia's dinners, watching her shows, playing the role of devoted husband while his world crumbled in secret. Vincent's first report arrived via encrypted email. Subject L makes frequent visits to various cafes and restaurants, always meeting different individuals. Primary contact appears to be CB, Carolina Burnett. Surveillance photos attached. The images showed Letitia and Carolina meeting with an array of people, businessmen in suits, young couples, elderly immigrants. Each meeting followed a pattern. Paperwork exchanged, cash handed over, quick dispersal. They're running a business, Vincent explained during their next meeting. But it's not import-export like your wife claimed. He spread photographs across his desk. See this man? Jorge Mendez entered the U.S. on a tourist visa 6 months ago. Here he is meeting with Carolina and Letitia. 2 weeks later, he's at the courthouse marrying a U.S. citizen. Spencer's stomach churned. They're arranging marriages? For a fee. Vincent pulled out bank statements. Your wife has a separate account under her maiden name. Regular deposits. Always just under $10,000 to avoid banking red flags. How many others? We've identified at least 12 couples in San Diego alone. But here's where it gets interesting. Vincent pulled out another file. Remember that Ricardo name you heard? Spencer nodded, his mouth dry. Ricardo Knapp? Vincent placed a marriage certificate on the desk. Legally married to Letitia King in Mexico City 5 years ago. The marriage was never dissolved. The room spun. Spencer gripped the arms of his chair. She's already married? To a small-time criminal with multiple fraud convictions. Vincent showed him a Mexican police report. They worked together running similar schemes in Mexico. When he got too hot, they developed a new plan. She'd marry an American, get citizenship, then bring him over through family reunification. Marshall swore softly. She played you, man. There's more. Vincent hesitated. We found evidence of 2 previous attempts in other states, Washington and Oregon. Both times she approached single male teachers, but the relationships ended before marriage. Spencer remembered their first meeting, her convenient questions after class, her perfectly timed vulnerability about her visa. Every moment had been calculated. What do we do with this? Marshall asked. Immigration fraud is a federal crime, Vincent explained. 5 years prison time, $250,000 fine, immediate deportation. But you'll need to work with ICE. I have a cousin at ICE, Marshall said quietly. Brendan Ramirez. He handles fraud cases. Spencer stared at the evidence spread across Vincent's desk, photos, bank records, marriage certificates. His entire relationship reduced to exhibits in a criminal case. The citizenship interview, he said suddenly. When is it? Vincent checked his notes. Scheduled for next month. They usually separate couples, Ask detailed questions about the relationship. Perfect time for a trap, Marshall suggested. Spencer picked up the Mexican marriage certificate, studying the signature he'd never seen before, Letitia Knapp. Set it up. That evening, he returned home to find Letitia cooking his favorite chili rellenos. She smiled when he entered, flour dusting her cheek. "Hard day at work?" she asked, stirring the sauce. "You look tired." "Just busy." He kissed her cheek, tasting the lie. "Need help?" They moved around the kitchen and practiced domesticity, the routine familiar, yet poisoned by knowledge. When her phone buzzed, he noticed how she angled the screen away from him. "Carolina again?" he asked casually. "See, always something with her." Letitia laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. "She wants to practice English tomorrow." Spencer nodded, remembering the surveillance photos of tomorrow's scheduled meeting. Not with Carolina, but with a nervous-looking couple carrying thick envelopes. Later, as Letitia slept beside him, Spencer stared at the ceiling. The woman who had captured his heart, who had shared his bed for 3 years, was a stranger. Worse, she was a criminal who had targeted him, used him, played him for a fool. His phone lit up with a text from Marshall. "Brendan's in. Meeting tomorrow to plan the operation." Spencer looked at his sleeping wife, memorizing her peaceful expression. Soon that peace would shatter, and he would be the one holding the hammer. But for now, he let her sleep, let her believe her plan was working. The truth would come soon enough. The federal building's fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows as Spencer sat across from ICE agent Brendan Ramirez. The agent's desk was meticulously organized, case files stacked with military precision. "Vincent's evidence is solid," Brendan said, reviewing the documents. "Bank transfers, surveillance photos, witness statements from previous attempts in other states. But we need more." Marshall shifted in his chair beside Spencer. "More? What else could you need?" "Recorded conversations. Direct evidence of the fraud network." Brendan leaned forward. "Right now, we have circumstantial evidence. Strong, but circumstantial." "I can't exactly ask her to confess on tape," Spencer pointed out. "No, but we can create opportunities." Brendan pulled out a calendar. "The citizenship interview is in 3 weeks. That's our window." He outlined the plan, each detail methodically explained. Spencer would need to wear a wire, gather specific conversations. They needed Letitia or Carolina to slip up, to reveal details about their operation. "What about their meetings?" Spencer asked. "Vincent has photos of them with different couples." "We're tracking those," Brendan confirmed. "But proving they're arranging marriages is tricky. We need someone on the inside." Marshall straightened. "What if Spencer pretended to know someone who needs papers?" Brendan's eyes lit up. "That could work. A colleague maybe, someone asking for help." They spent the next hour crafting the scenario. Spencer would mention a fictional coworker, a British teacher whose visa was expiring. The desperation, the need for a quick solution, everything that had made Spencer himself vulnerable. "Remember," Brendan cautioned, "don't push too hard. Let them make the offer." The next day, Spencer sat in his regular faculty meeting, the wire itching against his chest. He waited until the break, then approached his department head within earshot of the break room, where Letitia often met him. "About James, the exchange teacher," Spencer began loudly. "His visa situation is getting desperate." Right on cue, Letitia appeared with her usual Thursday lunch visit. She paused in the doorway, listening. "Poor guy," Spencer continued. "He's trying everything to stay. Says he'd even consider marriage if it meant not leaving." Later that evening, as they prepared dinner, Letitia casually brought it up. "This teacher friend of yours, the British one, James?" Spencer kept his voice neutral, though his heart raced. "What about him? Maybe Carolina could help. She knows many people in immigration situation." "Really?" Spencer looked up from chopping vegetables. "What kind of help?" Letitia shrugged, but her eyes were calculating. "Maybe she knows someone looking for arrangement. Many people help each other this way." The wire caught every word. In his earpiece, barely audible, Brendan whispered, "Perfect. Keep her talking." Over the next 2 weeks, they gathered evidence piece by piece. Spencer mentioned James's increasing desperation. Letitia arranged a casual dinner with Carolina. The conversation was careful, coded, but revealing. My friend, Carolina said over wine. She is looking for opportunity like your friend needs. American citizen, very nice girl. Maybe they should meet? Each recorded conversation built their case. But it was the money trail that provided the breakthrough. Vincent tracked deposits from recent couples, all leading back to a shell company registered to Carolina. We've identified 28 couples, Brendan announced during their final planning meeting. Most arranged within the last year. Your wife and Carolina charge between $30,000 and $50,000 per marriage. Spencer remembered the designer clothes, the expensive handbags. Where does the money go? Multiple accounts. Some to Mexico, presumably to Ricardo Knapp. The rest. Brendan spread out bank statements. Your wife's been building quite a nest egg. The citizenship interview was scheduled for Wednesday morning. They planned every detail, the timing, the confrontation, the arrest. Spencer would enter first, playing the supportive husband. Then, when Letitia was separated for individual questioning, they would move. Once we present the evidence, Brendan explained, most suspects try to cut a deal. They give up names, dates, details about the operation. And Ricardo? Spencer asked. Mexican authorities are ready. When we move on Letitia and Carolina, they'll pick him up. The night before the interview, Spencer watched Letitia try on different outfits, practicing her answers in the mirror. How did you meet? She recited. Community college, ESL class. First date? Coffee shop near campus. First kiss? Outside my apartment after dinner in Old Town. Each answer was perfect, rehearsed, empty. Spencer remembered those moments, real for him, calculated steps in a con for her. You'll do great, he assured her, the lie bitter in his mouth. She beamed at him. I study so hard for this. Tomorrow, we begin our real life together, yes? Spencer nodded, unable to speak. In a way, she was right. Tomorrow would change everything, just not how she planned. That night, he lay awake, listening to her peaceful breathing. 3 years of deception were about to end. The evidence was solid, the trap set. Justice would be served. So why did victory feel so much like loss? His phone buzzed softly. A text from Brendan. Everything ready for tomorrow. Be at office by 9 a.m. Spencer closed his eyes, remembering the hopeful teacher who'd fallen in love with a student 3 years ago. That man had died in the rain outside his apartment window, replaced by someone harder, wiser, sadder. Tomorrow would bring justice. But tonight, he allowed himself one last moment of grief for the love that never was. The morning sun cast long shadows across downtown San Diego as Spencer adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror. His hands trembled slightly, not from nervousness, but from the weight of what was about to unfold. Looking sharp, Brendan said from the driver's seat. They parked a block from the USCIS office to review final details. Remember, we need her in the interview room before we move in. Spencer nodded, checking his watch. She's probably already inside. She's been practicing for weeks. Indeed, Letitia had transformed their apartment into a study hall. Every surface covered with flashcards, timelines of their relationship, photos arranged chronologically. The irony wasn't lost on Spencer. She'd studied harder to maintain their lie than she ever had in his ESL class. 2 days earlier, Spencer had watched her rehearse with Carolina in their living room. The wire under his shirt captured every word. When did you first meet? Carolina quizzed. ESL class, San Diego Community College, Letitia recited. He was my teacher. I stay after class to ask questions about English. Good. First date? Coffee shop near campus. I order cappuccino. He have black coffee. We talk about my family's restaurant in Mexico City. Spencer remembered that date differently now. Every detail she'd shared, the restaurant, her childhood, her dreams, had been carefully crafted fiction. What side of bed does he sleep on? Left side. He always set alarm for 6:30, but hit snooze 2 times. Carolina nodded approvingly. Perfect. You know more about him than his mother. Now parked outside the USCIS office, Spencer pulled out his phone. One last act of deception. Almost there, he texted Letitia. Her response came instantly. Inside already. So nervous. Where are you? Parking now. You'll do great, mi amor. The Spanish endearment tasted like ash in his mouth. Remember, Brendan said, checking his weapon. Let her go in first. Agent Phillips will separate you for individual interviews. Standard procedure. That's when we move. Spencer's phone buzzed again. A photo from Letitia. She bought a new dress for the occasion. Navy blue with white trim. Professional, sophisticated, perfect for becoming an American citizen. You like? She texted. Want to look perfect for our big day, Red Heart. He'd helped her choose it last weekend, playing the supportive husband one last time. You look beautiful, he'd said in the boutique, watching her twirl in front of the mirror. Like a real American. She'd laughed, kissing his cheek. Soon I will be, thanks to you. Now he typed back, perfect. Be there in 5. Brendan gestured to the unmarked vehicles positioned strategically around the building. Teams are in place. Once she's in the interview room, we'll have the building secured. Spencer pocketed his phone. What if she runs? She won't get far. Brendan's voice was confident. We have her Mexican passport flagged. Airport security is alerted. Border Patrol is monitoring all crossings. Even if she slips past us, she won't make it out of San Diego. They walked toward the federal building, maintaining professional distance. Other couples waited outside. Genuine couples pursuing their American dreams. And perhaps others like Letitia, building lives on carefully constructed lies. Inside, the air conditioning hit Spencer like a wall. Letitia sat in the waiting area, her new dress pristine, hands folded carefully in her lap. Her face lit up when she saw him. "Mi amor!" She stood, smoothing her dress. "I was worried." "Traffic," he explained, accepting her kiss. Her perfume, the one he'd given her for their anniversary, wrapped around him like a noose. "Mrs. Marks?" A USCIS officer appeared with a clipboard. "We're ready for you." Letitia squeezed Spencer's hand. "Wish me luck." "You don't need it," he said truthfully. "Everything's going to work out exactly like it should." She beamed, following the officer down the hallway. Spencer watched her go, her heels clicking against the tile floor, her dark hair bouncing with each confident step. "Mr. Marks?" Another officer approached. "We'll conduct your interview separately. Standard procedure." Spencer nodded, catching Brendan's eye across the lobby. The ICE agent gave an imperceptible nod. The trap was set. In the empty hallway, Spencer paused. Through the interview room door, he could hear Letitia's voice, bright and practiced. "Yes, we met in his ESL class. He was my teacher." 3 years of lies were about to end. Justice would be served. But as Spencer reached for the door handle, he allowed himself one moment of grief for the love story that never was. Then he straightened his tie, squared his shoulders, and opened the door to face the truth. The interview room felt smaller than Spencer had imagined. Sterile white walls, a metal table, and the steady hum of fluorescent lights created an atmosphere of institutional efficiency. Letitia sat across from Agent Phillips, her practiced smile still in place. "So, Mrs. Marks," Agent Phillips was saying, "tell me about your first apartment together." Before Letitia could answer, the door opened. Brendan entered first, followed by 2 ICE agents in tactical gear. Spencer stepped in last, closing the door behind him with a quiet click. Letitia's smile faltered. "Spencer? What's happening?" "Mrs. Letitia King Marks." Brendan placed his badge on the table. "Or perhaps you prefer Mrs. Knapp?" The color drained from her face. Her eyes darted between Spencer and the door, calculating escape routes. "I don't understand," she said, her accent thickening with stress. "Spencer, who are these people?" "We have some questions about your marriage," Brendan continued, laying out photographs across the metal table. "Specifically, about your existing marriage in Mexico City to Ricardo Knapp." Letitia's hands gripped the edge of her chair. "These are lies." "Spencer, tell them." "We have a marriage certificate," Brendan pressed on. "Dated 5 years ago. Never dissolved. Making your marriage to Mr. Marks here fraudulent." No, there is mistake." Letitia stood abruptly, her new dress rustling. "Spencer, mi amor, don't listen to them." Spencer met her desperate gaze. "I heard you, Letitia, outside our bedroom window, talking to your mother about the green card, about Ricardo waiting in Mexico. You were spying on me?" Her voice shifted from pleading to accusatory. "You betray me like this?" "Betray you?" Spencer's laugh held no humor. 3 years, Letitia. Every moment, every kiss, Every Te amo. All lies. Brendan placed more evidence on the table. Surveillance photos of meetings with Carolina and various couples, bank statements showing transfers just under $10,000, phone records documenting calls to Ricardo Knapp. We know about the fraud ring, Brendan explained. Carolina Burnett's operation. The couples you helped arrange. Your previous attempts in Washington and Oregon. Letitia sank back into her chair, her facade cracking. I want lawyer. Of course. Brendan nodded to one of the agents, who moved to stand by the door. But first, let's discuss the charges. Marriage fraud carries a 5-year federal sentence and a $250,000 fine, plus immediate deportation, the other agent added, and a permanent ban from entering the United States. Letitia's composure shattered. She lunged across the table, reaching for the evidence photos. You ruined everything. I worked so hard, planned every detail. The agents moved quickly, restraining her arms. Her carefully styled hair fell across her face as she struggled. 3 years, she spat at Spencer. I cook your meals, share your bed, listen to your stupid dreams about teaching. For what? To live in tiny apartment on teacher's salary. Spencer absorbed her fury calmly. Was any of it real? Real? She laughed bitterly. You were job, Spencer. Assignment from Carolina. Fine, nice American man, she say. Teacher perfect, lonely, trusting, stable job. You were so easy to fool with sad stories about expired visa. Each word struck like a physical blow, but Spencer stood his ground. And Ricardo? My real husband. A man with ambition. Not some idiota teaching immigrants for pennies. She straightened in the agent's grip, finding her dignity. You wait for me in Mexico City. Together we build empire, not grade papers all day. An empire of fraud, Brendan interjected. Your husband was arrested an hour ago by Mexican authorities. The entire operation is finished. This news finally broke her. Letitia slumped in the agent's hold, tears streaking her makeup. I want lawyer, she repeated, softer now. No more questions? Mrs. Knapp, you're under arrest for immigration fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and multiple counts of document falsification. Brendan nodded to his agents. Read her rights. As they led her toward the door, Letitia paused beside Spencer. For a moment, he saw a flicker of the woman he'd thought he married. Vulnerable, beautiful, seemingly sincere. I did love you, she whispered. Maybe not at first, but sometimes it was real. Spencer stepped back. No, it wasn't. That's what made you so good at this. You made me believe every lie. The door closed behind her, leaving Spencer alone with Brendan and the scattered evidence of his fraudulent marriage. You did well, Brendan said, gathering the photos. Her confession about Carolina's operation will help us shut down the entire ring. Spencer nodded, staring at their wedding photo among the evidence. 2 smiling faces, one genuine love, one calculated deception. What happens now? He asked. Detention, then deportation. Brendan's voice held professional detachment. The DA will want your testimony for the criminal case. Spencer picked up their wedding photo, then deliberately placed it face down. Send me whatever papers I need to sign. He left the interview room without looking back, each step carrying him further from the life he'd built on lies, toward a truth he never wanted but couldn't ignore. The courthouse steps felt steeper than Spencer remembered. 6 months had passed since the USCIS office confrontation, but the legal proceedings dragged on like a slow-motion replay of his shattered marriage. Final hearing, Marshall said, adjusting his tie as they climbed. You ready? Spencer nodded. He'd given so many depositions, signed so many affidavits, that numbness had replaced pain. Today would formalize what he already knew. His marriage had never legally existed. Inside courtroom 304, the prosecution team was arranging documents. Photos of Carolina's operation covered their table. Surveillance shots, bank records, marriage certificates. The fraud ring had been larger than anyone suspected, involving dozens of couples across 3 states. Mr. Marks? District Attorney Sarah Chun approached with a stack of papers. We'll need you to verify these recordings one last time before entering them into evidence. Spencer recognized his own voice through the headphones, playing his part in those final weeks. Letitia's voice followed. unknowingly confessing to Carolina about their sham marriage. The recordings felt like artifacts from another life. The bailiff's voice cut through his thoughts. "All rise." Judge Monroe entered, her robes sweeping behind her. The proceedings began with a familiar rhythm of legal terminology and evidence presentations. Then they brought in Letitia. She wore orange prison scrubs instead of designer dresses now. Her dark hair hung loose, no longer perfectly styled, but her posture remained proud as she took the stand. "Mrs. Knapp," D.A. Chin began, "please explain to the court your role in Carolina Burnett's immigration fraud organization." Letitia's eyes found Spencer's before she spoke. He held her gaze, refusing to look away. "Carolina recruited me in Mexico City," she testified, her voice steady. She said American men were easy targets, lonely professionals, especially teachers and social workers. Kind men who want to help immigrants. "And Mr. Marks? How did you select him?" Spencer was... She paused, something flickering across her face. He was perfect target. Single, established career, inheritance money from grandmother. Carolina said teachers make best marks because they already care about helping immigrants. Each word reinforced what Spencer had learned over months of investigation. Carolina's operation had been methodical, targeting specific professions, studying their victims' routines and vulnerabilities. The funds from these arrangements, D.A. Chen continued, where did they go? Different accounts, some to Carolina's shell companies, some to Ricardo's business in Mexico, some. Letitia's voice caught slightly. Some I keep for when I return home. The testimony continued, each detail adding to the portrait of calculated deception. Other members of the fraud ring testified via video link. Bank officials explained the money trails. Immigration agents detailed similar cases across the country. Finally, Judge Monroe called Spencer to the stand. "Mr. Marks," D.A. Chin approached. "Please tell the court when you first suspected your marriage was fraudulent." Spencer described the rainy Tuesday, the overheard conversation, the investigation that followed. His voice remained steady, professional, as if he were describing someone else's life. "And now," D.A. Chun concluded, "you're seeking an annulment?" "Yes. The marriage was never legally valid due to her existing marriage in Mexico." Judge Monroe's gavel fell like punctuation marks through the afternoon. Guilty verdicts, prison sentences, deportation orders. The dismantling of Carolina's empire documented in careful legal language. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras and microphones. Spencer's story had become a cautionary tale, featured in documentaries about immigration fraud. "Mr. Marks, how does it feel knowing your marriage was a sham? Any comment on the fraud ring's operations? What would you tell other potential victims?" Marshall ran interference, guiding Spencer through the media gauntlet to his car. "It's over," Marshall said as they pulled away. "Really over this time?" Spencer watched the courthouse shrink in the rearview mirror. "Yeah, but it wasn't over, not really." 6 months after Letitia's arrest, he still found traces of her everywhere. Bobby pins in the bathroom drawer, her favorite coffee mug in the cupboard, a bottle of perfume half empty on the dresser. Each item told its own story of deception. The mug, purchased on their fake honeymoon. The perfume, bought with money from other fraudulent marriages. Even the bobby pins seemed to mock him, holding together a facade that had finally fallen apart. He threw himself into teaching, finding solace in the simple act of helping people learn. His students' genuine struggles with English felt refreshingly honest after years of calculated manipulation. One evening, cleaning out his desk at home, Spencer found an old photo booth strip from their first date. For shots of them laughing, making faces, sharing a kiss. He studied Letitia's smile in each frame, wondering if she'd been acting even then. The support group he'd started for other fraud victims met weekly in the community center. Their stories echoed his own, love twisted into lies, trust exploited by professional con artists. Together, they learned to rebuild, to trust again, to forgive themselves for being kind enough to be fooled. The heart's capacity for hope, he told a new member one evening, is both our greatest strength and our greatest vulnerability. Months became a year. The media attention faded. Spencer's annulment was finalized with a simple signature. His apartment slowly transformed. Letitia's traces replaced by new memories, new choices, new possibilities. When Alicia McLean joined the ESL department, Spencer barely noticed at first. She taught advanced grammar while he handled beginners. They shared textbooks and lesson plans, nothing more. But she noticed things: how he always graded papers by the window, how he stayed late to help struggling students, how he never complained about extra administrative duties. "You're different from most teachers I've worked with," she said one evening as they planned the semester's curriculum. "You really care about the students' stories." Spencer looked up from his lesson plans, seeing genuine curiosity in her eyes. "Everyone has a story worth telling," he replied. "Even if it's not the one you initially thought it was." The experience had changed him, but hadn't broken him. Each day brought new opportunities to choose trust over suspicion, hope over fear. His American dream hadn't ended with Letitia's betrayal. It had simply taken a different shape. And somewhere in Mexico City, he imagined Letitia telling her own version of their story. Perhaps to her, it had been just another job. Or maybe, in quiet moments, she remembered the ESL teacher who had loved her enough to believe every lie. Either way, Spencer had learned his lesson. Love, like language, had its own grammar, complex rules about trust and truth that no amount of practice could fake. Epilogue: 5 years later. The autumn breeze carried fallen leaves across San Diego Community College's courtyard as Spencer Marks finished his evening ESL class. At 37, his temples showed traces of gray, earned from the events that had reshaped his life half a decade ago. "Professor Marks?" A student approached his desk. "I have a question about citizenship process." Spencer looked up, memories flickering briefly. "The International Student Office has immigration advisors who can help you with that." He learned to maintain professional boundaries. The support group he'd started had grown into a formal organization, Marriage Fraud Awareness Network, with chapters in 6 states. Their work had helped expose similar rings across the country. "Honey," Alicia McLean Marks appeared in the doorway, her lesson planner tucked under her arm. "Ready for dinner?" Their relationship had developed gradually over shared textbooks and curriculum meetings. When he finally told her about Letitia, she'd listened without judgment, understanding his need to move slowly, to verify, to trust carefully. They'd married last spring, a real wedding this time, with both families present, documentation thoroughly vetted by habit rather than necessity. The silver band on his finger felt different from his first marriage, heavier with truth, lighter without deception. The news about Letitia had come through Brendan last year. After deportation, she'd attempted to restart operations in Tijuana, but Mexican authorities were watching. Ricardo's criminal connections had unraveled under scrutiny, leading to his arrest for fraud and money laundering. She tried entering Canada, Brendan explained over coffee. Used forged documents, claimed refugee status. They caught her at the airport. Carolina's network had crumbled spectacularly. Former clients came forward, each story revealing new layers of deception. The investigation expanded to include tax evasion, document forgery, and international money laundering. 5 years in federal prison, Brendan continued. Carolina turned state's evidence, named every contact. The whole organization, 37 people across 4 countries. Spencer had followed the case through court records and news reports. Carolina served 3 years before being deported to Mexico. Her testimony had provided a roadmap of similar operations, leading to reforms in immigration procedures. The aftermath rippled through the immigration law community. USCIS implemented new verification protocols. Marriage fraud investigations intensified. Spencer's story became a case study, featured in training materials for immigration officers. Marshall had married too, to Sarah, who'd sat with Spencer through countless court proceedings. They named their first son Spencer, a gesture that still moved him years later. Uncle Spencer. 6-year-old James Cook raced across the restaurant patio, where their families met for monthly dinners. "Dad says you're coming to my baseball game. Wouldn't miss it, buddy." Spencer ruffled the boy's hair, sharing a smile with Marshall. His best friend had stood witness at his second wedding, just as he had at the first. But this time, His speech held no hidden concerns, no subtle warnings. To second chances, Marshall had toasted. And to learning the difference between loving someone and being loved in return, Vincent Guthrie still sent Christmas cards, updates on cases that echoed Spencer's story. The private investigator had specialized in marriage fraud, his experience with Letitia's case making him the go-to expert for similar investigations. The support group met in a larger venue now, church basements replaced by community centers. Spencer attended monthly, sharing his story with new victims, showing them hope beyond betrayal. The hardest part, he told them, isn't the fraud itself. It's learning to trust your own judgment again. Some faces became familiar. Mike, whose Russian bride vanished with his savings. Jennifer, whose husband of 5 years turned out to have 3 other wives in different states. David, whose story mirrored Spencer's so closely they could have been reading from the same script. They healed together, learned together, rebuilt together. Spencer watched them move forward, finding love again, wiser but not hardened. One rainy Tuesday, exactly 5 years after the day he'd overheard Letitia's phone call, Spencer received an envelope with a Mexico City postmark. Inside was a letter written in familiar handwriting. Dear Spencer, prison gives you time to think. I think about you, about us, about the lies that became my life. You weren't just a job. You were the only real thing in my world of pretense. I didn't know how to handle that. Ricardo is in prison. Carolina lives in Guadalajara, teaching English ironically. I work in my family's real restaurant now. The one thing I didn't lie about. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that you changed me. Your kindness, your genuine love, they haunted me more than any punishment. Be happy. Be loved. Be real. Letitia. Spencer folded the letter carefully, then filed it with the court documents and case files. Another chapter closed, another lesson learned. That evening, watching Alicia grade papers beside him on their porch swing, Spencer reflected on the path that had led here. The betrayal had changed him, but hadn't defined him. What are you thinking about? Alicia asked, noticing his distant expression. Second chances, he replied, taking her hand. And how sometimes the wrong path leads you to the right destination. Their wedding photo sat on the mantel inside. Not a courthouse snapshot, but a joyful celebration surrounded by family and friends. Beside it stood a framed mission statement from the Marriage Fraud Awareness Network. From deception to direction, from victims to advocates. The organization had helped hundreds of people rebuild their lives. Spencer's story had become a source of hope rather than caution, proving that authentic love could grow in the ashes of deception. In his ESL classroom, Spencer still taught with passion, still cared about his students' dreams. But now he directed immigration questions to proper channels, maintained professional distance, documented everything out of habit. The experience had taught him that trust, like citizenship, had to be earned. But unlike his first marriage, it didn't make him cynical. Instead, it made him appreciate genuine connections more deeply. Alicia understood this. She never questioned his careful nature, his need for transparency, his insistence on taking things slowly. Their love had grown naturally, built on shared understanding and mutual respect. Ready for tomorrow's department meeting? She asked, gathering her graded papers. Always. Spencer smiled, remembering how different his life had been 5 years ago. As long as you're there. They turned their shared office at home into a command center for the Awareness Network. Walls lined with success stories. Couples who'd found real love after fraud. Victims who'd become advocates. Lives rebuilt stronger than before. Spencer's story had become part of a larger narrative about resilience, about the human capacity to heal and grow. The betrayal that could have broken him had instead given him purpose. As the sun set over San Diego, Spencer thought about all the versions of himself that had existed in this city. The naive teacher who fell for a student's lies, the devastated husband who stood in the rain discovering truth, the advocate who turned pain into purpose. Each version had led to this moment, sitting beside his real wife, leading an organization that helped others, teaching with wisdom earned through experience. Letitia's letter would remain filed away, a reminder not of what he'd lost, but of what he'd gained. Her deception had taught him the true meaning of love. Not blind trust, but conscious choice. Not dramatic gestures, but daily honesty. The Marriage Fraud Awareness Network's hotline rang regularly now, each call a chance to turn another victim's story from tragedy to transformation. Spencer answered them all, sharing his journey from deception to direction. The truth, he told each caller, isn't just about exposing lies. It's about finding your authentic path, even when it starts with a wrong turn. And in that truth, Spencer had found not just recovery, but revolution, turning one man's betrayal into a movement that helped others navigate their own paths from darkness to light, from fraud to freedom, from fake love to real life. The end was really just another beginning. And this time, every step was authentic, every moment genuine, every love real. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.